college football rivalries are some of the most entertaining things to observe from afar, unless you're one of those rivals, involved in it. But it's fun to sit back and watch these rivalries when the teams meet on the field, but also what the fans are doing. We got some great stories of some fandom from college history down in Texas, and all I can say is, holy cow, you're going to love this. Coming up in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history on a day-to-day basis. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time. So as we come out of the tunnel of the Sports History Network, let's take the field and go no huddle through the portal of positive gridiron history with pigskindispatch.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of pigskindispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history. And welcome to another edition where we're going to go solo today and tell a little story, talk a little bit of heart to heart that we haven't done for a while here on Pigskin Dispatch Podcast. Just could be you, the listener, and me, your host. We're going to talk a little football and what's on our minds here going on. Well, first thing is, we just want to remind everybody out there that if you haven't yet, we have a daily newsletter. It covers everything that comes out on Pigskin Dispatch. Everything comes out on Jersey Dispatch, as well as any of our friends' sites or anything else that's going on in the world that we want you to know about for that day. It has links to everything, including this podcast and the Jersey Dispatch podcast, Orville Mulligan, sports writer, and many of our friends on the Sports History Network as well. It's real easy to sign up for. Go to the show notes of this very podcast, click the link there, or go to the top of Pigskin Dispatch or jerseydispatch.com. Now, some other things that we got going on. We have an on this day type of scenario going on both sites, jerseydispatch.com and pigskindispatch.com. And some things that are going to be coming up on Pigskin over the next few days is on the 28th of October, we're going to be celebrating some great events in football history. How about quarterback Willie Totten and setting a record, Emmitt Smith breaking an NFL record on that day, and talking about some great Hall of Famers like Kyle Rote and some others that are in there, Reuben Mays, and just some great things like that, and the first documented professional football pass. On the day after that, that was the 27th, we're going to be talking about that. On the 28th, we're going to be talking about a big goal line stand for Princeton and the Yukon Huskies and Terrell Davis having a birthday on the 28th. And we go into the 29th, but we're going to be covering some more great things there too, with a great 1966 kick in a Florida versus Auburn game that was very famous. And the top Princeton player, John DeWitt, celebrates his birthday. We'll be talking about him. These things and more coming up in Pigskin Dispatch over the next few days, so make sure you check out that. And I think what we're going to do today is we're going to go into something that I love to do, and that's get into a football story and talk about it, do a little bit of research on it, go out on a couple little offshoots to it, and just make it a little interesting thing. Well, this segment is going to rekindle a gridiron story from yesteryear that centers on a specific bovine mascot from deep in the heart of Texas. The University of Texas sports teams are called the Longhorns because of the Longhorn cattle that are an essential part in the development of Texas. Now, I found this story in a book called Football, Great Records, Weird Happenings, Odd Facts, Amazing Moments, and Other Cool Stuff by author Ron Martirano. I'm sorry, Ron, for mispronouncing your name. Now, he had a little tidbit of this story, and it inspired me to do some research and to dig into some more, go into newspapers.com, go into some Texas newspapers, looking it up, looking some other books, like Dave Campbell's Favorite Texas College Football Stories, which I have a copy of, another great book If you like to read about some Texas football of a couple different levels there, you can do that. So he had a little something on it. And I've also found some other websites, and we'll call those out as we go through here in the story. But it's a really an amazing story, kind of cool, and takes you back some time. Now, the Longhorn cattle breed that we talked about was introduced to Texas by Spanish settlers in the 16th century. The cattle quickly adapted to the Texas environment and became an essential part of the state's economy. So much so that the Longhorn cattle breed became a symbol of Texas in the 19th century. This bovine breed was featured in paintings, photographs, and literature in association with the state, and the Longhorns were also used in marketing campaigns to promote Texas products. Now, if you've ever seen a movie or photographs or been to the state of Texas, you will see the Longhorn horns on just about everything. If you remember Boss Hogg from the Dukes of Hazzard, even though they were over in Georgia, well, he had those Longhorns on the front of his big white Cadillac he'd drive around. I've had the opportunity to go down to Fort Worth to the stockyards where they have a lot of these live steers down there, those Longhorn steers. And these things are gigantic. You can go and you can sit on them, but they have a lot of memorabilia and trinkets and charms and everything related to these Longhorns. And, so very big part of Texas for sure. Now, the website Jiminicar.com, we've got a link to it on the accompanying post on Pigskin Dispatch, which you can follow the link on the show notes. It relays an 1892 alumnus named Tom Buffington who addressed a crowd of UT students, University of Texas students, in assemblage. And Tom back then said, quote, "I have been requested to present the University of Texas a mascot or protecting spirit that now in future years will bring good luck to the institution and its teaching. Behold him, the Longhorn of Texas, emblematic as he stands for the fighting spirit of progress. As the great Longhorn was free to roam in the wilderness of Texas, so must the university be free to roam the world of thought, unhampered and unafraid." End quote. So it was very natural, therefore, in 1893, when the University of Texas, with this very inspirational speech and all the momentum going towards Texas and Longhorns, the association, and this is the University of Texas, for God's sakes, you've got to have the biggest emblem of Texas. Well, 1893, UT adopted the Longhorn as their mascot. Now, in preparation for a November 30th, 1916 game, as we fast forward, there was a holiday parade and a game against Texas A&M happening on campus at UT Austin this is. Now, the idea to acquire a live mascot for the university came from a 1911 grad, Stephen Pinkney. And after graduation and passing the bar, he became the U.S. Attorney General's office, employed him, this former law student, and in 1916, Pinkney was assigned to the western plains of Texas to help out with some raids on some cattle rustlers. He was the lawman there. Now, in late September, near Laredo, Texas, one of these stings produced a confiscated steer whose coat was so orange, well, may I say even burnt orange, that the Texas alum immediately knew what he had to do. Pinkney raised $125 needed to purchase the animal from the state, which included a $1 contribution from himself and from each of 124 other fellow alumni. I think they probably did this so it wasn't like a big gift from one alumni and violating any NCAA rules. So if you give $1, that must have been legal at the time. Maybe it's still that way. Maybe you could, if somebody out there knows this, you could email me at pigskindispatch@gmail.com and clarify this. But I think that's why they did it. 125 different people, each donating $1 to buy the animal. Now, the young attorney arranged to have the steer loaded into a boxcar sent to UT's campus, and the arrival of the Longhorn became a publicity event. As it was unloaded from the rail car, there was a photographer present as well as a throng of people. And the photographer was using some flash photography of that era to record the moment of the animal's arrival. He wanted to get it out and maybe get it to the papers and, let everybody see this handsome mascot that the University of Texas was going to be having as their live mascot. Now, from its standstill pose, the beast heard, sawed, smelled the frightening flash of the camera, and then he reacted. He abruptly charged a photographer who had to scramble and dodge the stampede of this, animal that was annoyed by this flash. And the photographer reached safety, camera in hand, everything was safe. They corralled the big steer and got him back where he should be. But that was one of the only poses that this original animal that was a live mascot for the University of Texas got taken, probably because everybody was fearful for their lives being a photographer. But a year later, a few months later, during a 1917 trip to the Austin campus of Texas, a group of Texas A&M students kidnapped and branded the original Longhorn that Pinckney had worked so hard to obtain to get for the school. In a boastful prank, the Aggie man branded a 13-0 onto the beast, which was reflective of the score of a football game won by Texas A&M in 1915. So this was meant to embarrass, harass, and belittle the Texas Longhorn school by the Texas A&M Aggies. Now, the fans there, they were enraged and embarrassed that their rival had pulled off such a stunt and pranked them. Now, the University of Texas students quickly and cleverly decided they were going to do a cover-up plan. How could they, recoup and spin this into something good? They were, get the spin doctors working here. So they altered the unwanted graphic brand to read the words BEVO. They changed the 13 into a B, easy connection there. The dash in between the 13 and O into an E. They inserted a V in between the dash and the 0 and let the 0 be an O. So this nickname for the mascot, Bevo, B-E-V-O, stuck throughout the generations, and the live mascot of today in the modern era still has that name of Bevo. Interesting story there. But this isn't the only occasion that pranksters had attacked the beast that represents the University of Texas, and we're going to talk about that more in our next segment right after this.
Memorable moments were many. Franco Harris's immaculate reception, Roger Staubach's Hail Mary. But the decade's greatest teams were defined by defense. Author Michael McCambridge. Joe Zagorski's podcast, Pro Football in the 1970s, pays homage to a time when defense ruled the gridiron. Soundtrack provided by Horst Hoffman of filmmusic.io.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
This is Bud Bailey of the Buffalo Bills Historical Timeline. You're listening to the Pigskin Dispatch podcast.
And we're back, and as promised, we've got more stories on this mascot down in Texas schools, because this was not the only occasion that the Texas A&M Aggies, pranksters, and their backers targeted the poor beast Bevo. On November 12, 1963, the A&M cadets stole the University of Texas mascot once again and took the steer back to College Station to Aggieland. And according to myaggienation.com, they have quite a tale to tell about this instance as well. Now, it was a group of conspiring A&M cadets headed to the State Hog Farm show where Bevo was housed. Now, he was, there with, I assume, with a bunch of pigs and other things, but that's, they couldn't keep him at the campus. They needed a stable and barn and grazing land and everything, so they sent him to the State Hog Farm to be housed there. And the Aggie students loaded Bevo onto a stock trailer and drove back to College Station, somehow undetected by the farmer and ranchers, I guess. Once home, they showed off the caper as they drove around the quad of A&M, spreading the word across campus. Hey guys, look what we've got in the back. Now, once the fun was over, the A&M students notified Bevo's caretakers, a group of UT students called the Silver Spurs, that they had the steer, and it was located at a farmhouse in Bryan, Texas, where he would be cared for until the University of Texas group could come and retrieve him. Well, these suspicious Silver Spurs leaders, they weren't having any part of this business, so they called the authorities and were assigned help from the Texas Rangers. Not the baseball team, the Texas Rangers, the law enforcement group of the state police of Texas. Now the Rangers were hot on the trail, and they found a rental trailer on the A&M campus where while the lawmen were busy looking into who rented it, the students were pretty sly too, and they moved the beast from that farm in Bryan to another one some miles away from there just to cover up the trail. And eventually Bevo was found and returned to the University of Texas. Now, the Aggies allegedly, they stole 5 Southwestern Conference mascots in that year of 1963. There was only 7 other teams in there besides themselves, 8 teams total. They stole 5 of the 7 that they possibly could. So in October, the Aggies were accused, although it was never proven or denied, says the Aggies website that we are referring to here, of stealing Texas Tech's quarter horse mare, which was found outside of Lubbock with an AMC shaved into her side. The Aggies were also accused of stealing Southern Methodist mascots Peruno, who had some photographs appear of students pretending to brand the horse that appeared in the school newspaper of A&M called the Eagle. Now, they also took Rice's owl named Sammy and Texas Christian's 2 horned frogs that end up temporarily missing. Now, the whole Rice owl story is an amazing story there. They had this giant owl that was like 6 foot tall, paper mache, and weighed 100 pounds or something they would take out. Well, supposedly the A&M students stole this and dressed it up as a general and took it back to the campus there back at Texas A&M, and they saluted it and paraded it around and did all kinds of weird things with them. But the folks at Rice, well, they didn't want to admit that they stole it, so they ended up making another one and say, hey, Texas A&M, you didn't steal our owl. We still have it here. So they made another one. So it was a big to-do on that too. Different story. They did that during a basketball season, I believe. Well, the University of Texas, after 80 some years of getting harassed by Texas A&M, some clever students at UT decided that they were going to do something about it. In 1993, they heard some of the Aggies faithful boasting that A&M was one of the only schools in the South not to have its mascot, which was a collie named Rivalry, taken by any rivals. Never. This is 80 some years they've had this thing going on, and it's not happened. Well, this bragging ignited a conspiracy to meet the challenge there in Austin. The architectural engineering major at the University of Texas, Neil Andrew Sheffield, he is the mastermind of a scheme that would kidnap the Aggies' new mascot, Rivalry the 6th. Rivalry the 5 had just recently passed away at this point. Rivalry the 6th was just coming into an office or the doghouse or whatever you want to call it, mascotdom, of Texas A&M. So the would-be kidnapper brought in some co-conspirators, and the group researched where the canine was kept, and even learned much about her and her caretaker's schedules and routines throughout the day and through the week. After careful study, they managed to scheme a plan and found a way to get the pup and take her. Now, the time selected was just before the Aggies would be hosting the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in a big game for the 1994 season. I guess it's anytime you got Notre Dame coming into your home stadium, it's going to be a big record crowd. So they had Reveille 6 all prim and proper and ready to go to the game, probably had their hair done and nails done. Reveille 6 is looking good. So that morning, when the dog was let outside to conduct her morning business, the UT men were waiting in the bushes, I'm assuming. They grabbed the pup and sped away in a getaway car. Well, the owner probably came back, or the caretaker came out and said, "Hey, come on in, Reveille, where are you?" Reveille's not coming. They probably thought the dog ran away. Well, it went on for days. But the kidnappers wrote an Austin newspaper and demanded a ransom of a well-worded statement from A&M that the University of Texas was a superior school to their own. Sort of a humiliating statement to be posted in the newspaper by Texas A&M. And the Longhorns were getting a good kick out of this. Well, the victimized school at first used the denial tactic like much of their accusers had done in the past. They accused the kidnappers of nabbing the wrong pooch. But the rustlers, who the group from University of Texas called themselves, they would not give in. They said, no, we got the right dog. You need to do your ransom of writing that note and putting it in the paper. Eventually, after the authorities were called in and threats of prosecuting the violators, who would be charged with a third-degree felony if caught, Reveille 6 magically turned up the following day at her home of her caretakers, right where she had been taken from in the first place, and all charges were dropped, the investigation was dropped, Reveille was home, Texas A&M was happy, the University of Texas students, the rustlers, they were happy because they finally got one over on Texas A&M, and they could no longer boast that their mascot had never been stolen. So just some interesting things that happened, not on the football field, but things that revolved around football and the fandom of sports and college football. And there's no better place than when you have college football fans, especially the students themselves, that are really partaking in some of these things. I think it's kind of down looked on now, and it's felonies and third-degree felonies, and it's robbery and kidnapping, whatever you want to say. You're taking somebody else's property. It's all done in good fun, and it's you can look back at now and laugh and smile a little bit, but probably not the best idea to do that. So we do not want you to go do this. We condone this activity from happening. So if you're a student out there, don't go stealing your mascot, especially if your rival is like LSU and they have a tiger or something. That's probably not a good idea to do. So I hope you enjoyed this little story we had today. Hope you enjoy looking at Pigskin Dispatch each and every day for some more great football news each and every day. Like we said, join our newsletter. You'll know exactly what's happening, or just tune in to the website each and every day. Have it locked in as one of your favorites and have it pop up when you turn on your browser. That'd be a great thing too. And you'll see something new there every single day. That, we promise you, is something great in football history. So until next time, everybody, have a great gridiron day. Peeking up at the clock, the time's running down. We're going to go into victory formation, take a knee, and let this baby run out. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back tomorrow for the next podcast. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. A special thanks to the talents of Mike and Jean Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.